considered as read. When the committee rises and reports the bill back to the House with a recommendation that the bill do pass, the previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill and amendments thereto to final passage without intervening motion except one motion to recommit with or without instructions.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1 hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Polis, a colleague on the Rules Committee, pending which I yield such time as I may consume.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized.
During consideration of this resolution, all time yielded is for the purpose of debate only. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to support this rule and the underlying bill. The Resolution 337 provides for an open rule consideration for House H.R. 2354, the Energy and Water Appropriation Act of 2012. This rule provides for ample debate and opportunities for the members of the minority and majority to participate in that debate. The rule places no limitations on the number of amendments that may be considered as long as they comply with the rules of the House. This continues the Speaker's and the Rules Chairman's desire and commitment to have transparency and openness, which was demanded by the American people. It's been a long time since we had this type of process, and it's great to have an open process. I think it helps with the partisanship that we've experienced. The underlying bill funds the Department of Energy while also moving forward several ongoing construction and operation and maintenance efforts by the Corps of Engineers. It also provides $1.2 billion in emergency funding for the communities of Midwest and South ravaged by tornadoes, storms, floods earlier this year. $477 million is set aside for fossil energy research and development. Nearly 3 times the amount, $1.3 billion, is appropriated for energy efficiency and renewable energy programs to ensure that we continue to move forward in developing next generation power sources and fuels. Critical defense environmental cleanup efforts are funded at the total of $4.9 billion. This bill recognizes the importance of long-term nuclear waste disposal policy for the United States. $3.5 million is provided for nuclear waste disposal for the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Storage Site in Nevada. Further, no funds in this bill will be used to shut down Yucca Mountain. Since 1983, taxpayers have spent over $15 billion for the construction of this facility, and this bill reasserts the sense of the body that Yucca Mountain is the future repository for nuclear waste. Is every program or project funded at the levels that we would like? Probably not. For example, long-awaited federal funds for the Everglades effort in my home state of Florida are significantly pared back in this bill. I'm sure almost every member of this body could find some program, some project or effort that they would like to see plussed up. This is not a perfect world, however, and at the end of the day, the funding levels in this bill represent only a 3.3% modest cut from last year. We have to scale back our spending. Appropriations of the last Congress accrued about $1.65 trillion in deficit spending. It's the largest ever. We borrow about $4.5 billion every day, and we just have to pare back. Will the cut make this bill go along right? The cuts made in this bill along right our nation's physical ship? No, but it's a start. It moves the rudder, maybe a half a degree, but it does move the rudder to turn it around. The bill changes the way Washington has spent taxpayers' money in the past. For example, there are no earmarks in this bill. Also, because this bill is being considered in an open rule, any member can offer an amendment to increase or decrease funding levels. Again, the 3.3% cut to the Department of Energy and the Corps of Engineers budget will not solve all of our nation's physical problems, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this rule and the underlying legislation. Given our current budget situation, the Appropriation Committee has worked diligently to provide us with a fiscal responsible bill that allows Congress to begin living within its means, just like American families and businesses are forced to do every day. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on the rule and yes on the underlying bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I'd like to thank my colleague from Florida for the time, as well as to thank the majority members of the Rules Committee for a fair rule that will enable a wide variety of floor amendments to be brought forward. And I do rise in opposition to the underlying bill unless there are major changes made, which I hope a majority of the House successfully achieve in doing under this fair, open rule. The current political debate in Washington is dominated by the question of federal spending, and I think it's a question that we need to revisit under each appropriations bill. We need to cut wasteful spending. We should eliminate programs that don't work, eliminate corporate giveaways, look at the cost of tax subsidies that cost billions of dollars to Americans but fail to create jobs and really serve to enrich special interests. We also need to make sure that we don't lose sight that in our drive to reduce the deficit, that we impact investments that are accretive and help our economy and reduce deficits over time. Just as a successful business making cuts in a recession would make the cuts intelligently and wouldn't cut essential investments on capital resources, Congress shouldn't slash domestic investments that create jobs while also at the same time continuing to give handouts to multi-billion-dollar corporations. Given the approach to budgeting this year in this body, it seems like the majority isn't basing their decisions on cold arithmetic that's needed to balance a budget. Rather, there seems to be a different equation at play, an approach driven by ideology and special interest lobbying, not by a real concern for deficit reduction. And with this appropriations bill, I think what we're seeing is more of the same. How else can we explain a budget that ends Medicare while preserving tax subsidies for big oil, tax subsidies for corporate jets, and continues wasteful defense programs, in fact actually increases the defense budget, when we know that we have more defense than we can afford in this country? Why is wasteful spending prioritized over health care for our seniors, the education of our children, and investments under this bill that keep our air and water supply clean and healthy, reducing health care costs in the long run? Now, again, when we talk about these appropriations bills, it's not a debate over whether we should cut the deficit. I think Republicans and Democrats agree that we need to cut the deficit. It's a debate about how we restore fiscal discipline that has been abandoned over the last decade. Let's have that debate here in the U.S. House, and I'm glad that this rule allows it to do us under this bill, and I hope we're able to make some major changes to this bill. Unfortunately, the Energy and Water Bill as presented before the House under this rule exemplifies a reckless and ideological approach to the budget. This bill actually increases funding levels, increases deficit funding levels for fossil fuel research development, oil and gas research. It increases federal spending on these programs while cutting investments in clean energy research. Now, in the past, Republicans have claimed that they were for an all-of-the-above approach to energy policy, looking at optimizing exploitation of fossil fuels and also investing in new energy research. But this bill represents, instead of all of the above, this bill represents an oil-above-all approach to national energy policy. It's simply not a serious response to America's need for cleaner, more affordable domestic energy. You know, at a time when we all agree we're confronting a fiscal crisis, how can we ask American taxpayers to foot the bill for ExxonMobil's R&D? And that's exactly what we do under this bill. It's one of a series of subsidies for big oil that the majority has chosen to protect at a time that they're also demanding Americans see funding cut for schools and for seniors. Instead of increasing wasteful spending which benefits the fossil fuel industry, we should invest in the American clean energy innovation that will benefit our national security, our environment, and our economy. This legislation cuts total funding for the Energy Department's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy by 42% compared to 2010, at the same time increasing subsidies to oil and gas. These cuts mean less innovation, dirtier energy, and fewer clean energy jobs. In my home state of Colorado alone, over 5,000 jobs have been spun off of research that was conducted at the National Renewable Energies Laboratory, and the lab gives an estimated $714 million annual boost to our state's economy. It's that kind of research that is devastated under this bill. And I'm sure through this open amendment process, I call upon my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support efforts to restore that funding. These labs, like the National Renewable Energies Laboratory and the basic federal research, are incubators for the private sector. The investments don't go to bloated bureaucracies or government bureaucrats in Washington. They go to the actual hiring of experts and innovators that will spin off their ideas to entrepreneurs to bring to the marketplace. A model for private sector job growth that's critical for our nation's economy and critical for our national security in meeting our own energy needs domestically. The Department of Energy's investment in clean energy are the first step in a job creation domino effect. As of August 2010, as an example, National Renewable Energies Laboratory had 329 contracts with Colorado companies, totaling $414 million, including $775 million in the most recent fiscal year. NREL has cooperative research and development agreements with 23 Colorado companies. And NREL supports interactions with companies from across the nation. And that's just one example of the many research initiatives and public-private partnerships that this bill, as written, would call into jeopardy. And while, again, calling into jeopardy much of this fundamental research that has private sector applications, we're again increasing subsidies to the fossil fuel industry's research. $141 million, or 81% cut to weatherization initiatives that help insulate the homes of low-income elderly and disabled individuals is in this bill, while continuing and increasing subsidies to the fossil fuel industry. Another dangerous cut in this bill is cutting funding to the Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA-E, by 44% compared to the current year. ARPA-E is strongly had bipartisan support for years and helps fund innovation in the economy based on a proven successful model we've had in defense for many years called DARPA. It funds path-breaking ideas that are unlikely to get funding anywhere else at an early stage. The creative model is modeled after DARPA, which has led to things ranging from cell phones to the creation of the Internet itself, and has tremendous implications for America to meet its renewable energy needs. The bill before us is not smart, it's not sensible, it's simply not a fiscally responsible bill that meets our nation's energy future needs and cuts our deficit. I urge my colleagues to improve this bill through amendments during this open amendment process, and if it's in anything close to its current form, to oppose the final bill. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to address a couple of items. Number one, the tax policy we've been talking about and how we could raise extra revenues. The tax policy we have today was given to us by the 111th Congress, and I assume if they had wanted to change it, they would have when they had the majority. They didn't. They gave us a tax policy. We haven't got to that yet, but we will at some point in time. As far as the money we're using in this budget, it is a small decrease, but we have to do it. We're borrowing 40 cents on a dollar, $4.5 billion a day. We cannot afford it. If we were to increase the allocation in this particular bill, then we would actually be borrowing 100% of that allocation increase because we do not have the cash. So to me, we are here with a good bill. The rule certainly is a good rule. It's an open rule, and it's the perfect opportunity for anybody that wants to change this bill to do so. However, the underlying bill is also a good bill. It's done very well. Just to give you a picture of what the minority said about it and their views that serve on the committee, we commend the chairman, both the sub-chair and the full chair, for their efforts to assemble this bill in an inclusive manner. The bill funds critical water resource projects, supports science activities necessary to American competitiveness, and contributes to our national defense through vital weapons, naval reactor research, and nonproliferation funding. All these priorities that unite all of us rather than divide. There was a disagreement, and that is over the allocation, but we just cannot simply afford any more of an allocation for this than we have, and the budget that was done is an excellent one under the circumstances. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you. It's my honor to yield 4 minutes to the gentlewoman from California, a former colleague of mine on the Rules Committee, Ms. Matsui.
Gentlelady from California is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague from Colorado for yielding me time. Mr. Speaker, Ever since I got elected, I've been a tireless advocate on behalf of Sacramento's flood protection priorities. Sacramento is the most at-risk metropolitan area for major flooding, as it lies at the confluence of two great rivers, the Sacramento and the American. The city is home to the California State Capitol, an international airport, the state's water and electric grids, and over 500,000 people. If Sacramento were to flood, the economic damages would range between $28 and $40 billion. The consequences of such a flood will be felt across the nation. Even in this austere budget environment, it is critical that Sacramento's basic flood protection needs are met. I want to applaud the Energy and Water Appropriations Subcommittee for including funding for Sacramento's top flood protection projects. Each one of these projects is a critical component to improving the flood protection for the entire Sacramento region. Taken together, the completed projects will bring us closer to the level of flood protection that families and businesses throughout the region need and deserve. Moreover, these projects are already in the midst of construction. A lapse of funding would not only postpone the safety that the completed projects will provide, but would also increase the project costs, something that we cannot afford. In fact, these projects have already been funded at the local and state level and are awaiting a sustained federal match. For example, federal funding will help finish the Folsom Dam Joint Federal Project, the JFP, where continued construction on the auxiliary spillway will provide greater efficiency in managing flood storage in the Folsom Reservoir and critical dam safety improvements. The hundreds of thousands of residents living below the dam will be better protected once the project is finished. The JFP and our levee improvements will go a long way toward protecting and preventing flooding in Sacramento. But the funding in this bill does not fully support Sacramento's flood protection needs. The levels in this bill are actually below the Corps of Engineers' full capability. This winter, we have had record-breaking snowpack in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, which rests just above Sacramento. We're fortunate that the snowpack did not melt all at once. When this occurs, our dams and levees are put to the test. Mr. Speaker, luck is not something that the American people should have to rely upon. Hurricane Katrina and this year's flooding in the Midwest taught us that we need to take large leaps forward in shoring up our nation's flood protection infrastructure. Let's take the opportunity to fix our nation's flood protection system while the sun is out and not watch another American community get swept away in high water. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back. Who yields time? Gentleman from Florida?
I reserve my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Colorado.
This time I have no additional speakers and would inquire of the gentleman from Florida if he has any remaining speakers.
Mr. Speaker, I'm ready to close, and so I would yield to the gentleman from Colorado. And he could
gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill, again, while we appreciate the open amendment process, will need an open amendment process to correct because it's so highly flawed in its current form. It serves as a majority's vehicle for a whole series of anti-environment, anti-public interest riders. These riders undercut the Clean Water Act, putting at risk public health and increasing economic burdens on local communities. The bill prevents the Army Corps of Engineers from applying anti-pollution protections to many rivers, streams, and wetlands that supply drinking water and prevent flooding. Over 100 million Americans get their drinking water from public supplies provided in whole or part from waters that are at risk of losing Clean Water Act safeguards under this bill as written. Furthermore, the committee report language that accompanies the bill contains even more explicit policy directives, including the mandate that what was to be an independent advisory board on the safety of shale gas drilling be dominated by industry representatives, which would be a prime example of the fox guarding the chicken coop. Unconventional shale gas has been expanding into new areas at a breakneck pace and has been accompanied by growing health and pollution problems experienced by residents and communities when the drilling is taking place in close proximity to where families are living. Its growth is outpacing current safeguards, and exemptions already give the industry too much isolation from public safety assurances. I have great concerns that the committee felt the need to interfere in a balanced and truly independent technology advisory panel with the aim of silencing public voices in favor of representing the industry above all other legitimate stakeholders. In fact, the advisory panel is already heavily tipped in industry's favor, and the language shows us exactly whose side this legislation is on: entrenched industries and polluters, not the public interest. The annual Energy and Waters Appropriations Bill is important funding legislation. Historically, it's been broadly bipartisan, and it shouldn't be a playground for special interest handouts. Yet under this majority, that's what this bill has become that we're considering today. The bill in its current form undermines our energy future, undermines our national security, and subsidizes an energy industry that has given us record gas prices, fracking, health hazards, and dirtier air. It attempts to drive a supertanker-sized loophole through the laws that keep our clean water safe. This bill should be focused on investing in innovation to strengthen our country and our national security and our energy future, not focused on wasteful spending to special interest, supporting entrenched industries, and harmful cuts to their clean competitors. I urge a no vote on this bill. I urge my colleagues to come forth and try to improve this bill under the rule, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Colorado yields back his time. The gentleman from Florida.
Mr. Speaker, as you heard me say earlier, my Republican colleagues and I are committed to providing a more open, accountable, and transparent process. And the underlying bill went through regular order, including 8 different subcommittee hearings. Several Democrat amendments were adopted in the committee level. It has provided an open rule to allow Republicans and Democrats alike to offer their ideas in an open, honest debate. This vote is on the rule, which provides for an open, transparent process, where the ideas and policies will rise and fall on the basis of their merit, not on their party affiliations. This is what the American people expect of their elected officials. It's an expectation that's being fulfilled by this rule, and I encourage my colleagues to join me in supporting its passage. I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question on the resolution.
The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted, and without objection, motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Yeah. Ready to go. Pursuant to House Resolution 320 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House and the Committee of the Whole on the State of the Union for the further consideration of H.R. 2219. Will the gentleman from New Hampshire, Mr. Bass, kindly take the chair?
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the further consideration of H.R. 2219, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill making appropriations for the Department of Defense for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2012, and for other purposes.
When the Committee of the Whole rose on Thursday, July 7, 2011, the bill had been read through page 161, line 12. What purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Kucinich of Ohio. At the end of the bill, before the short title, insert the following new section. Section, none of the funds in this act may be used for military operations in or against Libya, except under a declaration of war against Libya pursuant to Clause 11 of Section 8 of Article 1 of the Constitution.
The gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 5 minutes in support of his amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, before the House completes work on this important bill, I think that it is imperative that the House is provided with one more opportunity to clarify its position with respect to the Constitution and our power under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the Constitution, which reads as follows: that Congress has the power to declare war. This amendment says none of the funds in this act may be used for military operations in or against Libya except under a declaration of war against Libya pursuant to Clause 11 in Section 8 of Article 1 of the Constitution. So what this amendment does is it recognizes Congress's power to appropriate and links it in this case to Congress's ability to declare war, and enables this House to definitively make a statement that it is our prerogative, our constitutional right, to determine whether or not this nation goes to war, and we are not going to see any war funded absent a declaration of war by this Congress. It is imperative that we act because by September, this administration will have spent $1 billion on the war without Congress having any say in that whatsoever. We will have gone to a war without any ability of Congress to have a voice. Now, to its credit, this House has taken up numerous proposals relative to the war in Libya that have sought to limit the sphere of conduct of hostilities against Libya. No ground troops, no money to rebels. This amendment, however, gives the House one last opportunity within this bill to speak very clearly about Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11, and to do it in the context of an appropriations bill which says that we will not permit any funds to be authorized unless this Congress moves forward with a declaration of war. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. Questions on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Ohio. Gentleman from Washington is recognized for 5 minutes.
The Kucinich amendment. First of all, the President has made a very strong case for this, for our military action in this. I think as Commander-in-Chief he has the authority to do what he did. We had a UN resolution. The NATO allies were involved, the Arab League. You know, is another option. The other option is the War Powers Act. And I hope at some point the President will ask for congressional support of his initiative in Libya. The idea that we're going to pull out of this thing unilaterally, undermine the NATO alliance, I think is a terrible mistake. And though I have the greatest respect for the gentleman from Ohio, I'm strongly opposed to his amendment.
Back. The questions on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Ohio. This gentleman from Florida.
Mr. Chairman, I rise to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I would first admit that if this gentleman introducing the amendment is nothing, he is certainly persistent. The only problem is after two lengthy days, 10 and 11 hours each day, with an amendment after amendment being presented, we have just seen this amendment in the last 5 minutes. We would have liked to have had a little more time to really analyze it. But a quick analysis of this amendment tells me that it is very much like all of the other Libyan amendments that we have defeated in the last 2 days. For example, I'm satisfied that this amendment would preclude any search and rescue mission on the part of Americans to save Americans. I'm satisfied it would prevent us from providing any intelligence, surveillance, or reconnaissance. I'm satisfied that it would not permit us to do any aerial refueling of our coalition partners and our NATO partners. I'm satisfied that the amendment would prohibit us from even being involved, sitting in the room while operational plans were being developed that might have an effect on the support role that the United States plays. So here we go again. We've already defeated this issue close to a dozen times in the last 2 days. So I just suggest we move on and defeat this amendment also.
As far as the questions on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Ohio, those in favor signify so by saying aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Mr. Chairman?
Gentleman from Ohio.
And that I ask for the yeas and nays.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18,
recorded vote.
Further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Ohio will be postponed.
Teresa, we're going to call these Flake amendments, we're going to call it the first, the second, and the third.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, proceedings will now resume on those amendments printed in the congressional record on which further proceedings were postponed in the following order. The First Amendment by Mr. Flake of Arizona, the Second Amendment by Mr. Flake of Arizona, the Third Amendment by Mr. Flake of Arizona, Amendment number 77 by Mr. Hulskamp of Kansas, an amendment by Mr. Paulus of Colorado, an amendment by Mr. Kucinich of Ohio. The chair will reduce to 2 minutes the time for any electronic vote after the first vote in this series. The unfinished business is a request for a recorded vote on the First Amendment by the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Flake, on which further proceedings were postponed, on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
First Amendment offered by Mr. Flake of Arizona.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of the request for a recorded vote will rise and remain standing. Sufficient number having risen. Recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their vote by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
Well, the House is finishing up work on the 2012 spending bill for the Defense Department with a series of six amendment votes, with Dennis Kucinich taking one more attempt at getting a Libya resolution, a Libya amendment passed by the House. His amendment vote will be the last in this series of 6. This first one is a 15-minute vote. Jeff Flake of Arizona proposing to cut $250 million for public schools on military installations. It's one of 3 amendment votes proposed by Jeff Flake of Arizona. So 6 amendment votes, and then a motion to recommit and final passage vote still ahead. And they will also vote on the rule for the Flood Insurance Reform Act, and more debate ahead on the Energy and Water Development Bill after the series of votes here on the House floor. Today, the unemployment figure for June came out. It ticked up from 9.1 to 9.2%. Labor Department saying that the economy generated only 18,000 net jobs in June. We are waiting to hear from President Obama at the White House shortly. He's expected to come out and make some comments about the unemployment number. Republicans have already held a brief news conference, and we'll also hear from the Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi later today. And if you don't see it on C-SPAN, you will see it on cspan.org. The President will come out shortly. We will have that for you, too. Just some schedule information about the U.S. House. This is obviously the last legislative day for the House this week, but the Majority Leader Eric Cantor has just announced that the House is canceling its district work period for the week of July the 18th. They were expecting to be off that week, but will be back in session the week of the 18th. So here on the House floor, 6 amendment votes, final passage still ahead on defense spending. In what should be the only series of recorded votes today in the U.S. House, they are working their way through votes on 6 amendments to the 2012 defense spending bill. This is Jeff Flake's amendment cutting $250 million for public schools on military installations. 6 amendment votes and final passage still ahead. Here on C-SPAN, we're hoping to take you live to the White House to hear from President Obama commenting on the unemployment number. That figure rose 0.1% up to 9.2. The Labor Department saying today that the economy generated just 18,000 jobs in June. So we'll get reaction from the President. We'll also show you later reaction from congressional leaders, from House Republicans anyway, and also from Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. She's expected to hold a briefing in about an hour or so. We'll have that later. And if you don't see it here again on C-SPAN, we'll have it for you live at cspan.org. The House has announced they will be back the week of July the 18th. That was to be a district work period. The Majority Leader announcing just a short time ago they'll be back in, and it is likely they will take up a proposed balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, but there may be work ahead on the debt and deficit as the President meets again this weekend on Sunday with leaders of Congress in what's expected to be a long meeting at the White House. Again, we're waiting to take you live. If the President comes out during this vote, we certainly will show it to you live and hear his comments on the jobless figure. The first of 6 amendment votes to the 2012 defense spending bill. Actually, these are the last 6 amendment votes. Final passage is still ahead, and later more debate on the energy and water spending bill. And the House will wrap up business this afternoon for the week. The Senate is done for the week. They're back on Monday. They will return on Monday to continue debate and vote on a sense of the Senate resolution that will call for any budget deficit agreement require those earning over $1 million a year to make a, quote, more meaningful contribution to deficit reduction. When the Senate returns, they're live, of course, on C-SPAN 2. Today on C-SPAN 2, we're bringing you simulcast coverage of NASA TV and the launch of the final Space Shuttle mission. Atlanta set to lift off at 11:26 a.m. Eastern. The House is finishing up work on the 2012 defense spending bill with 6 votes, 6 amendments, and then final passage still to come. We're hoping to take you live here to the White House in just a few minutes. We're expecting President Obama to come out shortly and talk about the jobless number, which was announced today. The unemployment figure rising from 9.1 to 9.2% for June, with Labor Department saying just 18,000 jobs were generated in the month of June. So the President was to come out about 10 minutes ago. We're standing by to take you live. And if we don't show it to you live, we will have it for you in the upcoming votes. House Republicans have also come out. We'll show that to you as well. And then more coverage later today. Nancy Pelosi will be speaking about the jobless number and more. She met with the President this morning at the White House. She has a briefing in about 45 minutes, and that's at 11:30. And then later today, the White House briefing with Jay Carney. All of that live, by the way, at cspan.org. This is the first of 6 amendment votes to the 2012 defense spending bill. Final passage still ahead. This amendment by Jeff Flake would cut $250 million from the bill for public schools on military installations. 5 more amendment votes to follow on the House floor, and final passage still ahead as well. This will be the last day this week for the House to be in session. They did announce today that they would return the week of the 18th, a week that was expected to be a district work period, expected to be off, but they're back the week of the 18th, and more than likely they will take up the balanced budget, proposed constitutional amendment for a balanced budget the week of the 18th, and possibly also some work if a deal is done this weekend by the White House and congressional leaders on the debt and deficit. The President meeting on Sunday with congressional leaders in what's expected to be a fairly long meeting. We are hoping to take you live to the White House in this vote or this series of votes. The President expected to make some comments on the unemployment figure. It's up to 9.2%, up from 9.1% for the month of June. We've also heard from House Republicans today. We'll show that to you. And Nancy Pelosi is holding a briefing in about 45 minutes or so at 11:30 Eastern, and we'll have that for you as well. And covering all of that live, by the way, online at cspan.org.
Vote, the yeas are 39, the nays are 300.
Machines are open again. Mr. Bonner. Mr. Bonner votes no. Ms. Linda T. Sanchez. Ms. Linda T. Sanchez of California votes no. Mr. Camp of Michigan. Mr. Camp of Michigan votes no.
On this vote, the yeas are 39, the nays are 380. The amendment is not adopted. The unfinished business is the request for a recorded vote on the second amendment by Mr. Flake, from the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Flake, on which further proceedings were postponed, in which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Second amendment offered by Mr. Flake of Arizona.
A recorded vote has been requested. Those in support of a request for a recorded vote will rise. Be counted as sufficient number having arisen. A recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 2-minute vote.
This amendment by Jeff Flake would reduce by $3.5 billion the funding for the Overseas Contingency Operation Transfer Fund. This is in the 2012 Defense Spending Bill, and there are 4 more amendment votes to follow. 2-minute votes in the House, and final passage is still ahead. House Republican leaders saying this morning that they will cancel a mid-July anticipated district work period the week of the 18th. Eric Cantor saying that the House will be in session